Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hi, everyone. This is Tammy Patzer, and I'm really excited because today's guest is Sharón Wyeth, and she is the creator and founder of Neimology. And you might be saying, what's that? Well, that is actually the science of names. And of course, she'll be able to tell you a lot more. But let me just read a little bit about her background for you so that you kind of know who's in the studio with me today via Zoom. So Sharón has so many accomplishments. Her impact in education has benefited thousands of students, and she's been highlighted nationally, even by the President of the United States at the yearly conference of more than 50 governors. And she uses her innate gift of intuition combined with unique observation skills and her reasoning mind to create what is called Neimology Science. And this Neimology Science helps to analyze an individual's personality, and it fits right in the same category as a Myers-Briggs or an Enneagram methodology. So, you're talking about science, and I want to get right into our conversation because, Sharón, you've traveled around the world, you've done years and years of research, and you've tested it not only in English-speaking United States, but you've been to Russia and China and India, and you found that this science works in all languages around the world and across the board. And you've written 3 books, and one of the books is Know the Name, Know the Person, and Know the Name, Know the Spirit. And I know you have other ones that are out there also. So I'm really interested in knowing, because I struggle with my name. My name is Tamara Elena. Patzer's my married name, ex-husband's name. But I go by Tammy, T-A-M-I. Who am I?
You are your birth name. So your birth name lies out your plan for this entire lifetime. It's literally your blueprint. Okay. And then as you change your name or you go by nicknames, which Tammy would be considered a nickname. Okay. That means that how you're going about your blueprint to accomplish it is changing, but the blueprint itself doesn't change. So in the blueprint is timing. What time are you going to do what when? Okay. Or when are you going to focus on what? And you have 7 lessons that your soul wants you to learn while you're here. And those always show up in the name. And then it shows up in the name, how you're going to go about them, when you're going to get them, and what's the shortest way to get them done. Because I always think, get them done, get them over with, get on with it,
So these 7 lessons would be for anyone.
Everybody has 7 lessons in their name. Every once in a while, I will have somebody that has more than 7. But if you look at their name, it's a highly accomplished name, and they had to have gotten special dispensation to have more than 7. Because it takes extra effort and extra work, and then there's extra consequences if you don't do it. And only once, and of all the tens of thousands of names I've read, have I seen somebody not have 7, and they had 6.
Oh.
So I thought, okay, you're at the tail end of this reincarnative cycle or whatever we're doing. You didn't come down with as much to do.
So you actually, when you wrote your book about Know the Name, Know the Spirit, that actually comes from how, when you are come to Earth or when you're born, you have a predetermined purpose. Is that right?
Correct. Right. You didn't come down here willy-nilly and on vacation. Okay. Well, I think some people did come on vacation, but they don't come to me. They don't need to. So you have a blueprint, you have a goal, you have something you want to accomplish, you want to learn. And that just shows up in the name. and then people are always amazed. Like, I just got off from doing a reading, and bless his heart, he goes, how would you know that about my mother? How would you? Nobody talks about that, And I go, well, it shows up in the name, so I talk about it. But it's like when I'm doing a reading for somebody, I look at the parent names, and then I look at the birth name, because I want to see the influence of the parents on that birth name, because you're going to grab stuff from simply living with them that is not in your birth name, but you have what I call receptors towards it. Like, you're going to take it in even though it's not in your birth name.
Oh, interesting, because I know that my mother, when she named all of her children, she gave all of us part of our name either has her name in it or my father's name. Like, my middle name is Elena. My dad's middle name was Alan. My mother's name was Margaret, Tamara. See that she was weaving things into the names. So you can use this naming Neimology not only for your spiritual development to find your purpose, but how do you use it? Okay, so for example, you said we have these 7 lessons. What are the 7 lessons typically? Do they have?
They're different for every individual.
Oh,
they're totally different. We didn't all come down here with the same purpose or the same desires. We came down here with a very specific plan of where you are in your own soul's progression and what your soul wanted you to learn.
Oh, okay. So that's part of when somebody works with you, you actually work with them and look at all of these different factors, the parents, their name, your name, and then you use your intuition and other.
Well, I don't have to use intuition because it's all spelled out in Neimology Science. And it's like it's not being psychic. It's not any of that, because if not, I couldn't teach it. And my students are doing it just as well as I am. And the ones that started with me 4 years ago when I started teaching it are doing it just as quickly as I can. And everybody else is doing it just as well, just simply not as fast yet.
So you have a background in math. Right?
Yes.
So does the Neimology Science have a mathematical component to it? Like numerology, for example?
None. None. It is so different. None. There's no numbers involved. It's patterns. So think about it. When I got when I majored in math and then I got my master's, think about how well trained my brain is in patterns. And so in my 7th year of teaching, when I started doing the seating chart, I realized that I was starting to look at the kids as if I already knew them when I didn't. And so I wrote down my impression of every child that was coming to me, put it aside till winter break, got it out later and looked at it, 3 months after I met the kids, and was amazed at its accuracy. So I thought, okay, my brain, so trained in patterns, has picked up some kind of a pattern with these kids' names. So how do I make what's unconscious conscious? And to figure out the nuances and the value of the placement of the letters, and then to know that a letter can be sitting there. And it's just like if you were in a classroom and you were sitting by somebody you liked, you could act one way. But if you're sitting by somebody you don't like, you could act a different way. You've got to really know the personality of the letters so you know how they react to the ones next to them. And so it sounds complicated, but I literally, what took me 15 years to figure out, and then I tested it for 3 years, it takes me 15 hours to teach somebody in person.
Wow. So like, for example, my name, Tamara, has a lot of A's in it. What is there about an A that makes it unique or different?
Well, it depends on where the A is placed in the name. For example, the first A in Tamara is your first vowel. And that would indicate that you have a tendency to be a workaholic until at the end of the day, you're just exhausted and you drop, and then you're really, really lazy and don't even want to get up to go to the bathroom. Okay. But the middle letter A would say you don't want to have to do any more work than you have to. So you're going to set the bar where you want it to be. But the minute you've hit that bar, it's like, okay, I'm done. Okay. But the A at the end of the name would indicate that you have likability, that you thought it was important to be likable. So you worked on you to get likable, but you're not going to change who you are to get somebody to like you. Okay. So they all have, and I'm just giving you Reader's Digest version because every letter has a chunk that goes with it. So, but it depends on that placement, what it's going to mean. Now, you have so many A's. I'm sorry, there's a gnat flying around here. You have so many A's in your name. So the more A's you have, the more spiritual a person is. And also the more they chose to really take advantage of this lifetime and learn as much as they possibly could.
I'm laughing just because of the take advantage of the opportunities to learn. Because you could, of course, take that in a couple different ways. I would say that it's really funny because I actually just became a reverend. And I can't say that in my life that I was like, oh, yeah, I want to follow a spiritual path and do all this. That I would say I was reluctant, and I was just kind of like I went along for the ride. And all of a sudden there I am talking about spiritual things being in the now, but it wasn't like I ever felt this real driven thing to become spiritual or to move into that higher consciousness. It was just something that was or is about me. And
your name would indicate that roughly around age 36 it became more important. And that within the next 12 years up until age 48, that's when you really claimed it.
I'd say that's probably true. And then just recently, things seem to have been presenting themselves more. Interesting. Yeah. So
your name literally lays out your timing.
I was going to say, so the timing, like right now I'm 61 and I've probably done more living in the last 10 years than I did in the first, let's say 50 years of my life. Is that part of that, whatever the timeline?
The name will give it to me, like when I sit here and figure it all out, that's the only math I use. Right. Okay. And it's only addition. So that will figure it out for me. But generally speaking, just so that you know, the body was created to last 120 years. Oh. And so if you look at that, half of that is 60. So your most productive years is from 50 to 70. It's the 10 years on either side of 60. So a lot of us will come into our own in our 50s. And by then we've raised kids or are really good at our professions, or else we're starting our second or third profession. But we know who we are and we know what we like. We know what we're good at. And so those 20 years from 50 to 70 are really our most productive years. And the fact that so many people want to retire in their 60s, I'm going, oh no, get into the 80s. You still have quite a long ways to go.
I would think that what happens to many people is they get into jobs and they want to retire from them because they're not in the right job. And then that's why they're thinking that retirement is the answer. But they don't necessarily have something else that they're thinking about. Like me, retirement doesn't even seem like that doesn't even seem like anything I would do, because I can see that everything I do, I could keep doing as long as I'm mentally okay. I could keep moving forward and not retire.
In your name, Tammy, it's interesting because it doesn't say any retirement in your name.
Oh, really?
You're going to be the worker all the way through. Okay. And what's very interesting is if you read a lot of the really big writers, like The Road Less Traveled with Stephen Covey and other books along that same line, you'll realize that all of them are saying, enable a kid stay in health and enable to have that long life. You've got to constantly be thinking, what do I want to do in 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now? So that the people who do retire and they have no plans, those are the ones you hear about that die within 6 months to 2 years after they've retired. But if you're retiring from whatever job you've had for a long time, hopefully it's giving you some kind of financial assistance. You can go into another career now that maybe doesn't pay as well or isn't as stressful or you don't have to use as many hours with, but it's something that you love and that you have gifts with. And you can start a whole nother career. I mean, I look at, like you said, you're in their early 60s. Well, you're only halfway through living for how long your body was made. So what do you want to do with the second half of your life? You know? And if you start making plans that way, I mean, I always look like 30 years from now, in the next 30 years, I'd like to do this. If I keep looking 30 years from now, I've got to keep, growing in that direction. And it gives me something to work towards and look forward to. So I'm literally subconsciously saying to the body, stay healthy. We need to be active. Look what else we've got on our plate yet to do.
Right. So that's one of the things that if you were working with somebody that you could help them with, if they're sitting there going, okay, I want to have a second chapter, third chapter, fourth chapter, or wherever they are in their lives, that you could actually help them with the Neimology Science to help them to kind of make a roadmap to do something different. Does that?
Yes, it shows up in the name. What your careers are shows up in the name. It shows up where the gifts are, the talents are, and where your money lies. Like, what do I need to do to make money?
Okay.
Which of all these choices is going to give me the most money, right? So, when I'm going to do a session with somebody, I literally do it the night before.
Mm-hmm.
Because I sit here and really do it. What I'm able to do, like everybody goes, man, you do that so fast. And I think, yeah, well, there's certain things that just jump out at you. But when I'm getting ready to do a reading, I choose to be incredibly thorough. So I literally look at the name and work everything out ahead of time so that I'm just going through my notes, once I'm on the phone with them.
So when you work with someone, you work with them, is it, you said over the phone or over Zoom? Do you normally do a face-to-face like with a video, or do you normally just do a telephone conversation?
I usually just do Skype or a phone. And the reason for that is I don't want to get distracted. Because it doesn't matter what somebody looks like, what their reactions are, what their whatever. I mean, I'm looking at somebody has hired me to interpret their name and to give them the insights and the progression and the gifts and the talents and the reasons and their purpose that are here. And that's why they've hired me, because the bottom line is they'd like to have a smoother life with more direction. Or they'd like to have better relationships. And you can compare two names and see exactly what needs to happen and what's really going on. And so I look at it that they've hired me to give them information. Okay. So I want my personality basically out of it. And I look at it as, here, I've worked it all out ahead of time. I want to give them as much information as I can in the time that they've allotted me.
I see.
And I always start with what the soul's purpose is. And I do that unless somebody's asked me not to, because to me, that's your most important thing. Why are you here? What did you come to accomplish? And then what's the easy way of doing it? For example, let's just say that the soul said, hey, we've got to get from Los Angeles to New York. Okay. You may start off by walking. You've got your whole lifetime to get there, right? You're going to walk. And then after a while, you might have seen somebody else hitchhiking. You go, oh, I can hitchhike and get there a little bit faster. And then you might think, somebody says something and you think, oh, wait, I could stay put, earn some money and get a bus ride, and get there a little faster. Well, the name always says, how do you get on the jet? How do you get on that airplane that's going to go there the fastest? And how are you going to know when you're there that they didn't land someplace and you accidentally got off at the transit point instead of making it all the way through? Your name gives you all of that information. I jokingly, Tammy, say that from the bedroom to the boardroom, once I know a name, I know what you are like and what you do like. But you asked me, Tammy, about your nickname versus your long name.
Yes.
Okay. So your long name says that you're learning how to manifest that which you wish to create. Okay. So you got to try this. You got to try that. You got to try this. You got to see what works best for you. So you're learning how to manifest. Okay. Your nickname says, hey, look at me, guys. I am manifesting. I'm not learning how, man. I'm doing it. Okay. And both names say that you won't do what you don't want to do. Nobody's going to talk you into doing something that you don't want to do. It's not going to happen. Okay. Now, the interesting thing is names also talk about health. Okay. So your thing says, as long as you stay physically active and don't sit on your butt all day long, you'll stay healthy. But where it is in your name, it's like 1/3 of your day needs to be active. So you need to be on your feet, not on your seat, 1/3 of the day. And it doesn't say, oh, I got to go do yoga and oh, I got to go do this or that or whatever. It just says be active.
That makes a lot of sense, because I know that when I am more physically active, I feel a lot better. And even if it's just going outside, walking around on the grass barefoot, that seems to recharge me and give me more energy. But you're absolutely right, because sitting in front of a computer is like, the health issues from just sitting. I definitely feel that when I do that, have too much.
Well, and that's what your name says. And I am very grateful that that's not in my name. I can sit on my butt all day long and stay healthy. I looked and I said, oh man, did I ever, come away with a good one there.
So if let's say somebody's going to get married, for example, does the last name, or if you hyphenate the last name, or is it really more in your birth name and nickname, and how strong is your middle name in all of this?
The first name is the essence of who you are.
Okay.
Your middle name is where you go when you're under stress. If you have a middle name, it says how you change. If you don't have a middle name, you don't change. Okay. And the last name represents your environment. So you have both nature and nurture. So when you're changing your last name because of marriage or any other reason, it's literally saying who you bring to you is now changing. Who you're going to allow to influence you is now changing. You're now bringing this type of input into your world, because who is around us really does influence us.
Right.
And it causes us to think differently or whatever. So I think it's very important to know that if you're changing your last name, you're also changing who you're listening to or who you're bringing to you. So a lot of people, when they're getting married, will call me and say, do I want his last name or not? And so it's my job not to say, yes, you do, and no, you don't. My job is to say, this is what kind of people you are now bringing to you. And if you take on his name, this is what's going to now be coming towards you. Or if you hyphenate your names, then this is what you're going to be getting. And so you decide which of those sound the best to you. Now, every once in a while, I will say, I highly recommend that you do not take his name. And the only reason I would ever do that is because the name coming in will make a combination within the name of yours that already exists, and it will pull violence into your world. So that anytime after 7 years of marriage, suddenly there can be violence there, and you could be the recipient of that violence. Now, if that's going to be the case, I say, please don't take his name. That's the only time I say, oh, please don't, because you don't want to bring in that violence into your relationship.
Wow, that's a pretty powerful information. Also, when I was reading on your website, you also help people to name their businesses also. So what is that conversation like?
That one's a real simple one, Tammy, because I simply say I need 3 pieces of information. What are 10 things that you want people to know or feel about your business upon hearing the name, whether it's conscious or subconscious? What are 10 things, qualities that you want in your clients? Who do you want to bring to your business? What do you want them to be like? Because we all have our preference of what kind of people we like to work with. And then the third thing is, what exactly does your business do and deliver? And I take those 3 pieces of information and I come up with a name for a business or a product that literally will contain that, so that when people hear it, they think the way or feel the way that you wanted them to, that you're going to be attracting the people into that product that you're wanting to attract in, and that it literally says what it is that you're doing. And it's the same, it's fairly similar. A lot of people will call me and say, well, you do business names and product names. How about kids' names, baby names? And I'll say, once you've got your child's name, because according to Dr. Eugene Whitworth's research, when he said there were still only 7 religions on the planet, before I jokingly say that they multiplied and divided and everybody made up their own, they all agreed on 10 things. And one of the things they agreed upon was that the incoming soul impresses upon the one naming them what they want to be called. So if that's the case, you want to wait and get whatever name is being impressed on you to call your child. And I say, and once you get that name, then call me and I'll help you spell it so that the child, the soul, gets the lessons that they wanted, but will make them easier to achieve.
Oh, okay. That's interesting, because it is true. And I'm thinking back to like when my son was born, I had a name picked out for him. And then when he was born, his dad wanted him to be named after him. And I really didn't want to name him after his dad, but I think I compromised and kept the middle name when I wanted to name him the first name, but he got his dad's first name. And because he would have been probably a different personality or something would have been different if I had named him what I wanted to name him.
Well, according to Cymatics, Cymatics, and according to bioacoustics, two different sciences that come from different directions, they have both shown in their own way that our DNA literally conforms to the sound that we most identify with and the vibration that we most identify with. And so if that's the case, if I say, "Who are you?" Tammy, you're going to answer with your name as if that says it all. Now, it is if you know Neimology Science. But because that's the sound you identify with, and that's the vibration you identify with, your DNA literally helps you to become that. So, in essence, what Neimology Science does is it matches that vibration and that tonation of your name, each letter at a time, with the corresponding action that goes with it.
Wow, it's kind of almost. I guess it's not complicated, but it is. And it's so powerful when you think about, how we name people, different names, or we might name a child after their father, Junior or the third or whatever. And what's that? How does that affect somebody if you're passing down like the same name, a senior, a junior, a third? What happens in that scheme of things?
Well, it's interesting because having that attached other surname, like the junior or whatever, it literally turns that whole name. So it's kind of like saying you've got the same ingredients that you're starting with, but the recipes that you can make are totally different. Okay? And if everybody understood what junior meant, nobody would do that. Nobody would. They would say the second. Mm-hmm. Now, the second, they would get really good stuff in there. But saying junior, you're getting somebody who's brilliant and rebellious. And who wants to have to deal with that?
Right.
And not necessarily honest. They're sneaky. So who wants to put that on your kid? Do you want to have to deal with them being sneaky and rebellious and maybe not always honest with you and being brilliant, maybe smarter than you are so they can get away with it? I mean, we wouldn't do that if we just knew what we were really doing.
Wow. So have you done any name research on any famous people, or like on the President of the United States, or famous actors or actresses?
The answer to that is yes. And that's why if you read the first book, Know the Name, Know the Person, it'll read like one of those magazines that you can get at the grocery store about all the stories and everything. Because when I wrote it first the editor said, this reads like you're a math major. And he had no idea my background. And I thought, I am a math major, but the way you say it doesn't make it sound nice. So how do math majors write? And he said, you all write so concisely that you have to read a paragraph 8 times to get everything that's mushed into that paragraph and get it all out. And I thought, well, yeah, because we don't like to waste time or space. And he says, I want you to take every paragraph and make it a page. And I thought, oh my God, how am I ever going to get this done? So it was very hard for me because I think like a math person. So anyway, I did that. And then I thought, okay, I'm going to give it to my daughter, who's a fabulous writer, before I send it back to the editor. And she goes, Mom, when you teach this class, it is the most fascinating class, because she's always been my cook and, like that for the classes. And when she was growing up. And so anyway, she says, and this is boring. She goes, you got to use facts. You got to use information. You got to use stories. And I said, but I can't talk about people behind their back. And she goes, use history people. So I've taught U.S. history 5 different years. And so as I started to write it, I thought, now I'm going to have to explain what this person did because people don't know history. And I thought, that's distracting. So then I thought, okay, what other people can I talk about? So I have not owned a television set in 29 years. Okay. I don't have time to do that. So I don't choose to have time, I should say. So anyway, I thought, okay, I'm going to get People magazine and the National Enquirer and Star and all those other magazines. And I'm going to read them like I'm studying. And I'm circling different things that I can talk about people or the movies or the characters. And so my whole book, as it's teaching you Neimology, reads like a gossip column.
And your daughter was right, because nothing is worse than boring content.
Exactly.
Even if it's good content. And she said it. She said, when you teach this is fascinating, because like our conversation, it's fascinating. And I'm trying to think of all of the different things, the damage that you could do to somebody just by their name, or like you said about listening to the inkling of what their name is supposed to be. Because, for example, my daughter told me about how she had a dream about what she was supposed to name her son before he was born. And so she named him that.
And that's fairly common, by the way, on
yeah.
how souls impress upon the parent that's going to name them what they want to be called. And in my book, I have heard thousands of stories, but I give one about where both the husband and the wife heard the name the same time or the same night. And one heard the first name with a different middle name than the other one. And then how that came to resolution. But I literally give the story because I thought it's so typical of how a lot of souls impress upon their parents.
Oh, that is interesting, because I just think about all of the different things, and just like with me and the struggle and using the longer name, but then the nickname is actually saying, hey, I'm doing it, versus trying to learn how to do it. Yeah. That's actually, that's good to know, that using the Tammy is actually stronger than using the longer name. And I think when I was a little girl, my mom gave me the nickname because I had such a hard time saying my name, because I had a little bit of a speech impediment when I was growing up, and saying the Tamara, it's just a lot of A's and everything. So you've also written a new book. What is that one?
Well, the next one that's coming out is a little divergent before I get to the fourth one in this series of Know the Name. And it is What Happens When. And that should be coming out by the end of the year. And What Happens When is really a tribute to my dad. He used to sit us 5 kids around the dinner table and create a scenario and then say, what would you do? And us kids would all say something. And then he'll go, well, how would you know this? Or how have you thought about that? And then we'd all change our answers. And he'd go, okay, but then what about this? And so there's been many times in my life that I have naturally done something because of the way Dad trained us as kids to think through, that have really helped other people or saved a situation or kept us all out of trouble, and it's just, to me, it was just like common sense, because that's how Dad taught us. But when I was a school teacher, and I used to open my room for lunch for the kids that didn't feel comfortable in the cafeteria. And invariably, for an example, somebody would start choking in the classroom and on their food. And I'd say, as I was racing toward them, I'd say, raise your left arm. And if you don't know which one's left, raise them both, And the kids would look at me afterwards and go, how come that worked? And I said, well, when you raise your left arm, it opens the passageway in your throat and it gives you more space for the food to go down, And the kids would all go, well, I didn't know that. And I'd think, didn't your dad teach you that? My dad taught me that. But there's so many different times in life when I think, hello, didn't your dad teach you that? That I decided to write a book on all the little things and big things that Dad taught us over time and situations to help for everybody who didn't have my dad for a dad. Just like another small one, just on the food thing, because I cover all different kinds of areas, is if you're drinking out of a soda can and you're at a party, to always keep your thumb over the opening of the can so nobody can put something in there when you're not paying attention, and never to eat out of a punch bowl. Well, he was very picky. He says, you don't eat food when you don't know what the kitchen was like that it came out of, right? And so when I was working in central office for a school district, they had a big thing like a Teacher's Appreciation Day, but it was for us administrators. And they invited us all to lunch. And I went because it was only polite, but I did not eat anything there because I didn't know any of those parents' kitchens, right? And I only drank a bottled water that I could unscrew the lid that was new. Because again, it was my dad's teaching. Well, 3 days later, they came all around and they said, we've made everybody appointments down to get their shots because one of the ladies that was a cook has hepatitis. And I said, well, I don't need to go. I didn't eat anything. And they all looked at me and go, you didn't eat all that wonderful food? And I thought, no, I didn't know the kitchens they came out of. It's things like that. Very simple, short. What do you do when this happens?
Wow. So you've got that book is coming out, and you have the know the name, know the person, know the name, know the spirit. And then you had another book about
know the name, know how to connect.
How to connect. Tell me more about that book.
So chapter 2 in the first book, in Know the Name, Know the Person, is all about the first vowel in the first name. And that's where your communication style lives. That's where your learning style lives, what you have to do to, how you show love, what you have to do to let the other person know that you're receiving love, or what kind of gifts to give. There's a lot of information in that one vowel. Wow. Okay. And so to me, I put it all in the first book in chapter 2. But enough people wrote in over time and said, where are you getting that from? And I go, it's chapter 2, the first vowel. And they're going, I don't see it. And I thought, it's one of those math things, I guess, where I put too much in one paragraph where I think it's all there, but other people don't. And so bless my readers, out of my readers' request to spell it all out, I literally made this book. And it's literally with all the topics. If you just learn these 6 letters, and if that's all you learn, you will be able to connect right away with anybody that you're speaking with. And you'll know how to do it. And you'll know what needs to happen on your part if you want a long-term relationship with them. That if you love them, how they receive love. So you'll know how to share, how to show that you love them in a way that they can understand it. You'll know how to get them the perfect gifts that they're going to enjoy. All kinds of things. When I was first an administrator, I had learned how to write upside down because I was teaching kids and we were doing math all the time. You go by somebody's desk and you write upside down so it's right side up for them, right? Well, that means I can also read upside down. And a lot of teachers can. So it's not anything wonderful or great or whatever. But anyway, I would sit across from my principal's desk, and then sometimes he would have to stop and take a phone call. Well, I used to think, he's wasting my time. He's on the phone. I'm in here. I got other stuff I need to be doing. So I naturally would start reading every paper on his desk upside down, right? And so by the time he got off the phone call, then I started asking questions about things I'd read, right? And what I learned was he was such a visual learner that if we did not give it to him in writing, he couldn't retain it long enough to really give us a valid answer later, or he wouldn't remember it. And it came from me literally reading upside down and talking with him that I realized the things he's reading, he remembers. The things he's not reading, he's not. And then it just dawned on me, if we could always give to our bosses, that's how it started for me, or give to the person that we're working with the situation as they can remember it and they can use it, if we want them to remember, isn't that valuable information? It's just like today on one of the readings I did, I said, I would recommend this book in audio fashion for your child to help move him in the direction of where his name says is going to be his real interest. And I'd say, but get the audio version. And the person I was reading says, and why the audio? And I said, because your child is an auditory learner, not a visual. He doesn't like to read. And if you want him to read this book, he's got to get it in the audio. And the guy says, how do you know that? And I think it sits there in the name. So that third book is very thin. It's like 68 pages or something. It's very thin and it's really spelled out. if you want to connect with somebody, if you want to maintain a friendship, if you want to establish one, what do you do? What do you need to know?
And that's all by their name.
It's all by their first vowel of their first name, just 6 letters.
There are other systems that I've seen out there where they color code things and they tell people, and I'm going, this sounds so much easier just if you know the person's name, that you could do that rather than know it, all these other things about them, because there's all of this training out there about how to connect with people and how to sell to people, and all of
the first vowel. That's in there too. On how to connect, it's how to upsell.
That's because you just said it. You said how to connect with people, and what do people want more than anything? They want to have relationships, because your relationships and I'm talking about in the real world and probably in the spiritual world too, but in the real world, if you were trying to do business with somebody, we want to have a relationship with them. And if we can quickly understand how to communicate with them, and all you have to know is the second vowel of their name, that's a lot easier than taking that Myers-Briggs or the DISC or any of those.
Or even astrology or numerology or, physiognomy, because all of those, you need more information than just the name.
Right.
Wow. And this one, the minute you're introduced to somebody, I kind of cheat. I get introduced to somebody and I go, how do you spell that? Because everybody spells their name so different. And as they're spelling it, I'm analyzing it. By the time they're done, I know exactly who they are.
Right. And because my full name and my nickname both have the second, it's A, so that carries through so you don't have to figure out anything too much more.
Now, Tammy, I'll share a little secret for you.
Okay.
If you go to any page on my website other than the home page, okay, there is a link where you can get this book, the ebook version, absolutely free.
Hey, I like that.
It's my tithing back to society to say, here, guys, if we could just learn how to get along with each other, here it is, absolutely free. Even if you want it in the hard copy, it's $18, or make me a liar for 5 cents, $17.95. But you can go to any page but the front page, and there's a link.
So any page but the front page, and this is
knowthename.com.
Okay, know the name, because you have a couple different websites.
I have 2. The other one's namemeanings.com. Name Meanings is simply 70 articles that I've written about names and about information that names reveal. Okay? And like, how do you know to give the best gift to a person? And how do you know whatever? Anyway, that's all on Best Name Meanings. And then the other one, the main site, is Know the Name. And that's where you'll be able to listen to this interview, or you can listen to past interviews. It's where I put everything, where you can get the books at the least expensive price of anywhere.
Great. Well, this is great. And everyone definitely go to knowthename.com, because you do have a lot of really good information. And tell me more about your certification program, that people, if they were interested in doing your certification program, tell me more about that.
So I get about 2 kinds of people, excuse me, that want to do the certification program. One, because they want the knowledge for themselves, because it helps them in their own business to connect with their own clients. Okay? And the other group, because they want to be able to give name readings like I do. Okay? And get paid for it. And I say, when you come out of the certification program, you can do either. All right? And so in 15 hours, I can teach all the basics of Neimology Science, where you can give up to an hour reading. You'll have enough information. And then if you want to go into more depth, there's a level 2, which is all the subtleties in a name and how I work with the lawyers to help them pick their juries or present their cases, and how I work with HR on choosing people for the job, like which people is going to do better for what job. And then, how you compare names and everything. But that's the level 2. And then level 3 is the spiritual knowledge. How do you get the 7 lessons out of a name? But if you just want to know about the personality and enough that you can enough of the name that literally you could give an hour reading, that most people are totally satisfied with just level 1. You can take it online with me, you can take it in person with me, or you can take it, what I call it, in the box. Now, it's so funny. When I send you the box, you get everything you need for it. You get the year follow-up with additional training, just like everybody else. You get to ask questions at the end of every 2.5-hour lecture. It's 15 hours. And people are saying now that they like that better than online and in person because they can have anything repeat as many times as they need it. But it's, and then I give you a name at the end of that. I give you a name and I say, okay, tell me about this name. And then I'll ask different questions. And when you pass that, then you become certified.
Wow.
And nobody has never not passed that, by the way, because I was in education 40 years. And so when I'm teaching it, I'm teaching all the mnemonic devices, how to remember it and all the stories that go with it. And so it all locks in and people are really good at it.
Yeah, that's the beauty of when you work with an educator, because they know about people who are auditory or visual or kinesthetic. And so you get every which way of learning how to do something. So, wow, what a phenomenal thing. I already went and signed up for that book while we were here. And I highly recommend that everybody do go check out knowthename.com, because you've got your radio shows, your media, you can schedule an appointment with you. You have a lot of really good information, and it really is just fascinating when you think about it and all the uses that you could do. And, think about it, if you were trying to name, everything from naming your baby so that they would have, a good name and destiny, all the way to your business, which I think is really important. Naming your business and products, it's right up there with what's going to make you successful. So I think that's really important. So tell me the best way to connect with you. Is it to go to your website and make an appointment? What is the best way?
The easiest way, if you want to make an appointment, go to the services page. So it's knowthename.com/services, or just click on services once you get there. And that way you can see what's available, and it's clearly defined what you get for what time slots, right? And so that's the easiest way. However, you can call us and make an appointment also, or you can write us an email, which is the contact is there, where you just click on contact, write us an email, and then we get back with you. When you're writing us an email, make sure you include your phone number, because I am a people person and I would much rather call you and do that, or have my assistant call you and do that, versus us just keep doing things back and forth over email.
Or text.
I don't text.
People drive me insane trying to have these big, long conversations in a text message. It's like, pick up the phone and you go, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, click, you're done.
You're done. And it's clearer, because if you don't understand something, you ask. And I don't like text. I don't do text. Because text, there is no, the tonation isn't there, and it's so easy to misinterpret.
Right. So before I let you go, do you have any last comment that you'd like to make?
If you wish to simply know yourself better and really connect and understand the people around you, then I would say get into the books or give me a holler.
Great. Everyone, make sure that you go to knowthename.com and take a look. And Sharón, thank you so much. You've really opened my eyes. And I guess I'll feel more comfortable now when I tell people, Tammy.
Tammy. Yeah, it is. Well, and the other thing, Tammy, is the first Thursday of every month. My radio show's on Thursdays. And on the first Thursday of every month, you can call in and get a brief question answered about your own name. Okay. Because on the other days, I have guests in. But on the first Thursday of every month, you can call in and get your name done.
I'll mark that on my calendar. Everybody, first Thursday of the month.
And it's 4 p.m. Pacific time or 7 p.m. Eastern time.
Okay, great. Knowthename.com.
And the information is literally underneath the schedule page on the website, where you can go to that Thursday that you're interested in, click on it, and it tells you exactly if I've got a guest and how to call in.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Great conversation.
It was so nice being able to talk with you, Tammy. And I love the way you spell Tammy with the Tami.
Oh, thank you. That's thanks to my mother, because that was the nickname she gave me. So thank you so much. So everyone, this is Tammy Patzer. Go make it a beautiful day.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.